My only son told me I was too ugly to be seen at his wedding. His fiancée said if I showed up, they'd have me put in a nursing home before the vows. What they didn't know was I was dying, yes, but I was also hiding a secret worth millions. And on the day they tried to erase me, I let them smile for the camera one last time before I took everything back. Now, let me tell you what really happened. I wore my lavender blouse that day, the one with the little pearl buttons he used to play with when he was a baby. I even pinned on my earrings the same pearls he gave me for Mother's Day when he was 12. I looked at myself in the mirror before he arrived, trying to see what he would see. All I saw was a tired old woman in a scarf, trying not to look like a ghost of herself, but I smiled anyway. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be one of those days we laugh about later. Maybe I'd say something embarrassing and he'd roll his eyes and Kendra would smile politely. Maybe they'd let me help fold napkins or taste test the cake frosting. I was still his mother. I thought that meant something. He walked in without knocking. All confidence in cologne. Tobias didn't even glance at the cookies I'd set out, or the tea I brewed from the loose leaves he used to beg for when he was little. He just sat down on the edge of my couch like he had somewhere better to be. I was already standing when he said it, but I still felt like I'd been knocked off my feet. I think it's better if you don't come to the wedding. He said it like it was a favor, like I'd thank him for sparing me the trouble. My hand rested on the teacup I hadn't touched. I asked him what he meant, though part of me already knew. It's a very curated event, he said, adjusting his collar. Very modern, clean aesthetic, minimalist. Kendra and I agreed. We want the guest list to reflect that. I laughed a little confused. You don't want your mother in your wedding photos. He shifted in his seat. It's not about photos, it's about presentation. You've been sick, the scarf Theo, the coughing. It might be uncomfortable for some of the guests. My heart felt like it cracked just slightly. So I'd be a distraction. Mom, he said, and I hated the way it sounded, like a formality. You know, we love you. Just Kendra wants a certain look, a certain experience. And he didn't get to finish. She walked in without knocking too. Kendra tall, thin face like a magazine ad. She didn't look at me. She looked around my living room like she smelled something off. So this is the place, she said. Cozy, very vintage, Kendra. This is my mother, Tobias said. She nodded without making eye contact. Nice to meet you. I stood there in my own home, feeling like a guest. I'd like to be there. I said gently. I can sit in the back. I don't need attention. I just want to see my son get married. She looked at me then finally, and when she did, her eyes were cold. We've already finalized the seating chart and the dress code. I'm sure you understand. It's about the vibe. I looked at Tobias, waiting for him to say something to stop her, but he didn't. She's sick, Kendra went on. I mean, you're sick. It's admirable you're trying. But the whole scarf and pale skin thing, it's going to make people uncomfortable. Tobias added. We can send you the photos. We'll even FaceTime you in for the ceremony. It'll be like you're there. I don't want a FaceTime link, I said quietly. I want to be in the room. Kendra smiled, but it wasn't kind. Maybe we can talk after the honeymoon about long-term care, somewhere that's clean, peaceful, a good place for recovery. She means a nursing home, I said. Don't make this harder than it has to be, Tobias said. I'm trying to be respectful. I looked at him, really looked at him. Same eyes I'd rocked to sleep, same jawline I used to kiss before school. Where did that boy go? I gave you everything, I whispered. Everything I had, he sighed and stood. And I appreciate that, but you can't keep guilt-tripping me forever. That's when he said it. This is why Dad left you. I felt something inside me go still. He said it like a weapon, like he'd been waiting years to throw that blow. And it hit exactly where he wanted it to. I didn't respond. I just sat down slowly, hands trembling on my knees. The tea was still warm, untouched. So were the cookies. Kendra turned toward the door. Well, be in touch. Let us know how your treatments go. Tobias leaned down and kissed the top of my scarf. It felt like someone patting a tombstone. We love you, Mom. We really do. Then they left just like that. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood, walked to the window, and watched their car pull away. Then I whispered to the empty room. Thank you for showing me who you really are. I reached for the scarf at the base of my neck and tightened it gently. It wasn't covering shame anymore. It was holding me together because something in me had shifted. I had something to finish now, and he was going to learn one way or another what happens when a mother who gave everything has nothing left to lose. Not anger, not bitterness, just clarity, search. I didn't cry that night. I didn't scream or curse or beg God for answers. I simply sat in silence, wrapped in the faded flannel robe I've owned since Tobias was in high school, my thin hands folded in my lap. The living room lights were still on, but the house felt darker somehow, as if the shadows were listening. My breathing was shallow, raspy from the chemo, but I didn't care. I just stared out the window at the street light blinking above the quiet road, remembering the days when that same light would illuminate my front steps as Tobias walked home from school, backpack bouncing, always hungry and always talking. Now it's just me and the weight of everything he said. You'll ruin the photos. You'll make everyone uncomfortable. This is why Dad left you. That last one stung the worst. I knew Michael left because he was a coward, not because of anything I did. He didn't want to be a father. Didn't want to work 2 jobs. Didn't want to love a woman who carried stretch marks and exhaustion like battle scars. I never told Tobias the truth. I always painted his father as tired, not absent, as broken, not cruel. I let Tobias believe that maybe, just maybe, Michael had loved him once. It was the least I could do. Now Tobias has grown handsome, successful, cold and cruel, just like his father. I rose slowly from my recliner, my joints stiff from the cold and the chemo, and shuffled toward the hallway. Every step echoed through the house like it was reminding me that no one else was there. My room was neat, the bed made, Bible still open on the nightstand where I had left it that morning. I walked to the closet and knelt with difficulty in front of the old filing cabinet at the bottom. Inside it, tucked beneath years of tax returns and birth certificates, was a folder labeled in black ink. Final. I took it out, brought it to the bed, and opened it carefully. Inside were neatly clipped pages. My will, my life insurance policies, the deeds to 3 rental homes, bank statement balances that would surprise even me. I've never lived fancy. I still use coupons at the grocery store, still clip my own toenails, still wear church shoes from 1997, but I've got money. I built a quiet fortune penny by penny over the years. I remember the first property I bought, a run-down duplex across the street. The neighbor, an elderly widow, passed away, and the family didn't want the burden. I had just received a small inheritance from my aunt and used it to place a bid. I rented it out, fixed it up bit by bit, and suddenly there was extra money every month. So, I bought another, then a third, then a stake in the local beauty salon when my church friend Sheila needed help starting up. No one knew, not even Tobias. I was going to surprise him. That had been the plan. I imagined the day I'd pass the funeral quiet and respectful, and then Monique would hand Tobias the letter. Inside it would say, "You always thought I had nothing, but I saved this for you. I wanted you to know that I believed in your future. That day will never come now." I picked up the will, stared at the signature at the bottom. Lorraine Elizabeth Massey. Right above it, Tobias's name, my only child, my only beneficiary. I reached over to my nightstand, opened the drawer, and pulled out my letter opener. A beautiful gold one Tobias had given me when he was still in college. It had my initials engraved in tiny cursive at the base. I used it to tear the will in half, then in quarters, then in eighths. I felt lighter after, like the air had returned to the room. The next morning, I called Monique Chambers, my oldest friend from church and my lawyer. We've known each other since we were 19, back when we sang in the choir together, and believed our lives would be simpler than they turned out to be. Monique answered on the second ring. "Lorraine," she said, voice still thick with sleep. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I will be. Can you come by this afternoon? I need to rewrite my will." There was a pause. Then Monique said, "Is this about Tobias? He came by yesterday, I figured. I saw the wedding announcement. No mention of you. He asked me not to come, said I'd ruin the aesthetic." Monique didn't respond, and Kendra, I added, my voice hardening. "She told me I was a liability, that I should be sent to a home." Tobias just stood there. Silence again. "Bring the new documents," I said. "I already know who I want to leave it to." "Are you sure about this?" "I'm dying, Monique. But not today. Today, I'm just taking back what's mine." Monique exhaled. "I'll bring everything." I hung up and walked to the kitchen. I made myself a pot of tea, buttered a slice of toast, and sat at the table with a yellow legal pad. I wrote a new letter, not to Tobias, but to the new beneficiary, the Rose House Foundation, a women's shelter in South Carolina that cares for elderly women abandoned by their families. I volunteered there in my younger years, helped paint the walls, serve food, even sat and read the Bible with some of the residents when they were too tired to read on their own. They're me now. Women no one visits. Women no one remembers. Women people want to put away so they won't ruin the view. I finished my toast and began drafting my final instructions. The house would go to the foundation. The rental homes would be sold and proceeds donated. The salon would remain open under Sheila's name. The bank accounts would transferred within 30 days of my passing. No funeral, no obituary with a photo, just a final letter printed and signed to Tobias Massey. "I raised you better than this. I loved you more than life, and you threw me away for a woman who never even looked me in the eye. So now you get nothing. I won't bury my money beside someone who buried me while I was still alive. Goodbye. I set the pen down and looked out the window again. The street light was off now, the morning sun pushing past the clouds. A new day, a new will, a new ending. This time I would be the one writing it. Search ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. Monique Chambers arrived just after noon carrying a black briefcase and 2 folders. She didn't knock, she knew better. I hated being treated like a client. We've been friends since we were both young women in pressed choir robes, sneaking snacks during Easter rehearsal. We held each other's secrets, cried at each other's funerals, and aged together like oak and stone. Solid, weathered, and unshakable. When I opened the door, wearing my scarf like a crown and moving slower than usual, Monique said nothing. She just stepped inside and placed the briefcase on the dining table. I brewed tea, I said, but it's cold now. Doesn't matter, she replied. We've got work to do. I sat down at the table and opened the legal pad where I had